Hi Phil,
Hello.
how are you?
Yes. Well, thank you. Yeah.
Nice to be here at Weetwood, nice to be back.
It is. Yes. Very good. Yeah.
But we're talking whiskey this morning. Kind of tell us about why you started producing whiskey here and a little bit about the process.
Okay. So we've been brewing beer 30 years. Myself and the team love whiskey as well. And in about 2018, we thought it would be lovely to make Cheshire's first single malt whiskey. No one else is doing it. We could be first to do it, and I guess we could challenge the belief that a good single malt needs to be 10 years old and made in Scotland. We thought, what can we do here? We work with barley every day. Barley is the basis of whiskey. So we bought still. We invested in barrels. We learnt how, as best we could, to make whiskey, although a lot of it is we've felt our way into it and done what we felt was right. But the key is that rather than making whiskey on a massive scale, where you're making hundreds of thousands of bottles every year, we knew with a relatively small still, on the relatively small scale we're operating, that we'd only be making 5,000-6,000 bottles a year, and each one of those would need to be absolutely full of flavour and character. So every stage of the journey, making whiskey is that there's lots of stages to it. It's quite complicated. Every stage we wanted to add flavour and character. So, for example, we use brewer's barley, not distiller's barley. So there's a difference. Brewer's barley is smaller, the yield is less, but the flavour is greater. So we start with that. We then create a wash in the brew house, 4,000 litres, which we then distill very, very slowly through in here. And what we get is a really lovely, it's called new made spirit. That brewer's barley really shines through. So we've got a really sweet spirit to start with. And starting with that, and then through the maturation, so obviously whiskey has to mature in oak barrels for at least 3 years before you can call it whiskey. And you'll see that the typical barrels we use are much smaller than normal. So if you're doing the whiskey on a big scale, you'd use huge, great big 200, 250 litre barrels. We use 125 litre, 145 litre, so smaller, quarter cask they're called, which we get remade at the cooperage. We get them shaved, toasted, recharred on the inside. So there's more wood contact that the spirit is having with the wood, and the barrels add a significant amount of flavour. The barrels are all single-use ex-bourbon for the initial maturation, and the spirit goes in there, and all the wood contact with those fantastic barrels starts a brilliant maturation in the environment where we do that as well, out the back here. And this was when we started by chance rather than by design. We didn't have the space to build a huge warehouse that we could sit the barrels in, so we bought a shipping container, 40-foot long metal container, which sits on the south side of the brewery here. Given it's a metal container, in summer it gets really hot. It's been up to 50 degrees. In the winter it gets really cold, down to could be minus 10 in January overnight. So we get these huge temperature variations, which means that the wooden barrels are expanding, they're contracting, and during that process the spirit is in and out the wood, so it's quite a dynamic maturation. If you put whiskey or new made spirit into a big barrel and you leave it in a warehouse for 4 years at a static temperature, then the wood's gonna have an impact, of course it is. But what we do is quite different, and the spirit really draws the character out of the wood, the sweetness that we want from the wood, and the character and the flavour. And then we always finish the whiskey in different barrels. So it's been in American oak for the first couple of years. We then transfer it into generally European oak, could be red wine, port, Madeira, Sauterne casks, could be a sherry cask. We've done a sherry cask release. and we transfer the whiskey into those barrels for the last year before then we bottle. Now, some big distillers will chill filter. They'll go at 40%, low ABV. We go at 46%. We don't chill filter, so everything you see in a Weetwood Cheshire Whisky is natural colour, full of natural flavour, and we think every stage of that you can tell when you drink the whisky. You can tell all the differences we've made through the entire process.